episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spawnhour and Theo Ash. And we're talking about fantasy football today. We've been giving our top 10 position groups, our top 10 players for different position groups. But today we decided it would be fun to give you some fantasy advice. Now, whether or not you want to listen to my fantasy advice is questionable because historically, my fantasy teams are very, very mid. But,
why do you think that is?
I think I get too bought into guys that I like and don't really pay attention to like if their situation is good for fantasy.
Oh, but see, this year Blaiden's fantasy advice is going to be fire because he's learned from his mistakes.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
This is going to be an Amari Cooper type of day.
Have you seen Amari Cooper? But he had that one game where he went for like 290 yards. You're just going to do that every week.
This is going to be an Amari Cooper, Odunze, and let's see if I can guess number 3.
Odunze is not on there. Odunze is not on there.
Okay.
But there is one rookie.
Okay.
But it's not Rome. It's not Leggett either. But before we get into it, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful, beautiful Wednesday?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't have a ton to report personally, so I mean, I don't want to let everybody down, but we just talked yesterday. We talked Sunday, and I just don't like. I just don't have things happen to me quickly enough. I don't have enough drama in my life. I'll go start a beef with somebody, or I'll just go do something in general for next episode.
That's so real of you.
Let's see. Do I have any fantastic stories? I don't really. There's my girlfriend's old apartment complex has a pool that we're trying to figure out how to break into and use after her lease is up. That's kind of the main plot point of my life right now, I'd say.
I'm going to tell on you, man. I'm not letting that slide.
Bro is snitching.
A vigilante.
That's crazy.
For protecting... I'm assuming, I don't want to say it's mid without knowing what it is, but most apartment pools are, apartment pools are only
No,
okay.
I don't know, Matt. Please elaborate.
I think most apartment pools are only okay. I mean, am I wrong? Is it dope? Does it have like a water slide?
No, it's just a 4-foot pool. But Blaiden doesn't have a pool. I know that he's trying to flex his house right now, but
I don't have a pool. That is true.
And you never will.
Yeah.
Damn.
What noise is that?
I think it's interesting to do fantasy stuff May 29th a little bit, but it's the off season, so like who cares? And it also means that we're getting out ahead of it. If you have that June 10th draft you're not going to see a lot of people getting you ready for that. We're here.
That's right.
But maybe it's possible if you're watching this in July, either something has happened in camp, which I feel like is not that likely. I think things are, for the top guys, are mostly set in stone outside of like somebody just gets hurt. Or maybe the ADP of dudes starts to shift. But if that is true and our sleepers become not sleepers, that just kind of proves us right in a way. So I wouldn't be too upset about it.
Yeah, we're doing this before the brain rot of OTA is
That's a very good way to put it, right? Before it's like, no, they're saying Adam Schefter just said he got 10 targets in practice.
This is pure speculation for like Xavier Worthy hasn't dropped the training camp touchdown yet. So, he's not going to plummet in the rankings at this point in the year or something like that. So this is the most pure time to get it done.
The average ADP is still pretty tame at this point.
Right, and Michael Thomas hasn't signed with anybody yet, so we won't be tempted by his inevitable resurgence. He is going as wide receiver 105 right now, and
this is the time to strike. Honestly, like once he gets signed, then it's gonna rocket up. Like when he goes to the Steelers or something.
How long has it been?
Since he was good, or
a long time.
What was the last time he played more than like 4 games?
Oh,
What, 2019?
It's been a while since he's been fully healthy and really good in fantasy.
Hey, he started 7 last year. But
hold on.
The format of what we're doing today is taking a look at the wide receivers specifically, and we've brought 3 busts and 3 sleepers to talk about each. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break from the top 10 lists that we've been doing, not do that every episode in a row for 2 months or whatever, however long it would take. So, we figured that this would be a chill divergence from what we've been doing. And that's about it.
That is.
You want to get started?
I do. I want to get started, and I want to get started with the sleepers, and I want to go first.
Okay.
Go first then.
If you're raring to go.
You made a joke about Odunze being one of Blaiden's sleepers. He's one of mine. I actually feel strongly about this.
He's a good sleeper, yeah.
He's going as wide receiver 41 right now. And I understand the logic, right? Rookie quarterback, maybe a little bit of a question, but more importantly, Keenan Allen is there. DJ Moore is there. Both of those guys are going to demand a lot of targets. But I think Odunze's low target share is maybe over-factored into his price. And I feel very strongly about him being good out the gate. Last year, wide receivers 40 through 45, that's what they finished. Not where they were drafted, but what they finished with. Averaged 85 targets apiece for the season. I would be stunned. I would be stunned if Odunze does not get to 85 targets. I understand there's a lot of guys to throw to there, but he was the 9th overall pick, and he is supremely talented. And he will be on an offense that I think is going to want to air it out, right?
Yeah.
The difference is, of course, that Odunze is probably a lot more talented than a lot of the guys who finished around that 40 to 45 area, which is like Diontae Johnson or Curtis Samuel or Gabe Davis was wide receiver 40. So I look at that and I say, unless you think Odunze is not going to break out early, which I think he will, it feels like his floor is the 85 targets, the 80 targets, and being just super talented on an offense that I think is going to be really good. And if he shows out and breaks out, or let's say Keenan goes down, gets banged up, all of a sudden his targets could be a lot more than we expect, and his talent level could be way higher than guys who are going in that range. So I think there's a lot of upside, and I think the downside at wide receiver 41 is very low for him. I really like him. It's easy to fall for a lot of rookies, I know, but I think
it's good to fall for rookies, though. Like, especially at wide receiver, I think that rookie wide receivers get undervalued a lot, and every year there's guys who it's their first year in the league. People are like, oh, it's going to take them some time to ramp up. But a lot of rookie classes recently have netted like really high fantasy scorers, and rookies are kind of a theme in my sleepers as well. And I think Rome is a great pick, especially because like he's such a red zone threat. I feel like once they get, I guess all 3 of their guys are good in the red zone, and they've got Komet. But
Rome especially being, such a contested catch dominator, having that in your back pocket of saying, even if he has only 80 or 90 targets, how many of those are going to be touchdowns?
I think that with a quarterback who wants to break structure and throw it down the field and create, Odunze is a style of receiver that fits well with him. I don't disagree with any of the complaints about, or not any of the complaints, any of the worries about like, oh, there's other guys who are going to get targets. There are, but it's just being factored in. Like, it's basically, in my opinion, the worst case scenario. 80, like he's going to see sub 80 targets. I have a really, really hard time seeing that unless he gets injured. I mean, he was the night, and he's going to be out there on the field all the time, And again, there is the Keenan Allen injury stuff where it's like if he went down, all of a sudden it'd be like, okay, well, Odunze would go way, way higher.
Also, let me ask you this: would you just straight up? Would you rather have Rome Odunze or Keenan Allen on the field?
Rome, I think.
It's well, the thing is that Allen was so good in fantasy last year. I understand all of these Bears receivers intrigued me. I mean, DJ Moore finished as like wide receiver like 7 or something last year. He's a beast, and now he's got a better quarterback, but who knows how many targets he sees. And Allen was super great, but who knows if he sees as many targets as he did with the Chargers, which was a totally different situation because it was no Mike Williams for a lot of it.
Right.
But I just think at 41, Odunze is the most talented receiver you can get by a lot, and I think his target share could only be better than people are projecting, in my opinion.
I don't disagree. I think that there's a bunch of rookies in that range, and I love them all. And one of them is my sleeper, which is Brian Thomas Jr. Because he may not be as talented as Odunze, but there are 136 targets that just left Jacksonville in the form of Calvin Ridley. And now you've got this first-round pick who's like, 6'4", runs a 3.3, can jump out of the gym, was insanely productive last season at LSU, entering an offense where the quarterback situation is figured out. And yeah, he has competition for targets in the form of Kirk and Ingram, but there's still going to be plenty to go around in that offense. And I feel like he is someone who is currently below Rome, below like Worthy. He's below Ladd McConkey, actually, as the wide receiver 1 in LA. I think his situation is just as good as Ladd's is. I understand like Ladd is the only option there, and Herbert is a little bit better than Lawrence is, certainly. But I'm still taking Brian Thomas Jr. because he is going to be able to pick up yards in bigger chunks and probably be more productive because of that deep threat ability that he has. And I just can't stop thinking about it. Like how many touchdowns were missed last year because like the Jacksonville wide receivers couldn't catch the ball or couldn't get both feet down or something like that. I really think that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a red zone target when they get down there because of his size at the very least. So that's another rookie wide receiver that I think people are sleeping on because Jacksonville isn't really a sexy location. He went later in the first round. People don't have as high of an opinion of Trevor Lawrence as I do, so they don't think, Trevor Lawrence can maybe lift a rookie to the heights I think that he can lift a rookie to. And if Brian Thomas is like good to go right away, or at least like by the midpoint of the season, like he could be as productive as really anybody in football, I think, in the situation that he's in as Trevor Lawrence is wide receiver 1.
I don't disagree entirely. It kind of ties into another one of my sleepers. I have the same logic. I just think that Christian Kirk is the play here.
He stole my whole fucking flow.
I think that Kirk is the guy to go here with. He's a little bit more reliable. Even coming off a bad year, he was like, I think in average, because he missed some games, he was like wide receiver 28. He's going as wide receiver 30. And that's a year where he had some bad drops. He didn't, bring in a lot of touchdowns. We know he's done better with Lawrence before. He's going to be on the field all the time because he's going to be working in the slot. I think he's kind of poised for a better season, and all those targets left, I think a lot of those are going to go to Kirk. I don't hate the Brian Thomas Jr. play, and I really like that pick in real life for them. But there's a little bit of concern that maybe he's a little bit more of a developmental guy. And in year 1 in fantasy, I wonder if that's the play. I'm not saying it's totally impossible that it's like, well, he's just so physically dominant that right away they're just throwing it up to him and there's nothing that anybody can do. But he also does have to develop the rest of his route tree. And how much that matters is something that is to be seen a little bit. Like he'll still get work regardless until that sort of comes along. And he certainly has the talent to do it. But I think Kirk is just really good value, and he's got upside.
Yeah, Kirk only played in 12 games last year, which is why like 787 yards and 3 touchdowns were his totals. Definitely, I mean, I liked the Kirk play last year. I think for the same reasons I like it this year too. But I do think that Brian Thomas Jr. has really, really tantalizing potential. Like the ceiling could far outweigh what even Calvin Ridley was last year and what Christian Kirk is this year. But I do like the Kirk play. But draft them both. Put all your eggs in the Jacksonville basket.
That is a scary strategy.
Bro, you have to believe me with Trevor Lawrence. And here's the beautiful part. Here's the beautiful part. You just want to go with the whole thing. Gabe Davis is wide receiver 57 right now. And I hate to say it, that's great value. It just is. It's
yes. All Jacksonville. ETN.
All Jacksonville wonders. We got burned bad by Jacksonville last year.
The thing that scares me about the thing that would scare me about Brian Thomas is they brought in Calvin Ridley last year, and as like a veteran wide receiver. Before Christian Kirk got hurt, he was like the third option on that team. Mm-hmm. And that just, I don't know if that...
But he wasn't the third option. He was the first option on that team. Like,
before Kirk, like I know the total targets worked out, but like midway through the year, before Kirk got hurt, he was the third receiving option. His targets per game, I think, is still probably, or his receptions per game is still probably second or third.
His target rate was fine last year. He still ended as wide receiver 23 in fantasy points per game last year. So even though Ridley was massively disappointing last year, like he's still ranked 23rd. And you can get Brian Thomas Jr. at 41 in terms of receiver ranking. Did I see that right?
I think he's right around there. I thought that
it's even lower. It's 47. On Fantasy Pros. So
at 47, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why he's a sleeper, right? Like you can get there can be 46 wide receivers that go before him. Like I would take him above probably like Hollywood Brown or who's ahead of him a little bit. I think I might take him over Diontae Johnson in Carolina. I might take him over even Jaden Reed in Green Bay, who's wide receiver 33. So
I might disagree with Diontae Johnson. Now, I want to make this very clear. I know I'm a Panthers fan, so you can just, think whatever you want. But Adam Thielen was playable last year, like very good. He was actually one of like the better sleeper picks last year just because of targets. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that Johnson will probably be.
But Thielen is still there.
Yeah.
And so is Leggett.
Leggett's there too. I think Johnson, just as a true man beater, will get a lot of targets. I think he's due for a little bit more work. Maybe I'm totally off base.
I don't think you're off at all. I mean, Bryce.
Where is he going?
Bryce very desperately needs
Diontae. I mean, I don't think Diontae is going to be a bust or anything. Diontae is at. I just saw him. He's at 40.
Wide receiver 30. Or 40, yeah. I think that's pretty good. I think that's
fine,
fair.
Yeah. But I would rather have the rookies than him, like Odunze and Brian Thomas, and maybe even Coleman. Like I just all the rookies. Like I'm taking them all. Coleman's in a great situation.
You might be underrated. You might just be underrating Diontae Johnson right now. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's good, but I just man, you've got rookies in this class that are like wide receiver ones with elite quarterbacks. That's Keon. That's like Brian Thomas. That's Ladd McConkey. That's Xavier Worthy, and maybe not Rome because they've got a lot of good guys there. But
I mean,
I like all of those dudes as plays. It's just that they're unproven, and I think you should strike even early because like it could be pretty soon that we realize like, oh yeah, he's a rookie, but I mean, the situation's great and they're talented.
Blaiden, who's your first sleeper?
I actually went a little weird here with my first sleeper. I went Marvin Harrison Jr. He is the wide receiver 10 right now. The last time Kyler Murray had an elite wide receiver 1 and was healthy, that receiver went for 1,400 yards in 16 games. Who else is there to take stuff away from Marvin Harrison Jr.? Like, really, truly. There isn't.
I
want to mention, like, A.J. Brown is ahead of him, and A.J. Brown was great last year, but I think the Eagles are going to be a little bit more run-heavy this year with the addition of Saquon. And Devontae Smith is still there. Dallas Goedert's going to be healthy. Like, I really think Marvin Harrison... How many guys went for 1,400 yards last year? 5? I really think Marvin Harrison Jr. could, like, come out the gate and be just, like, unreal. I think it'd be... Like, who else is Kyler going to be throwing to? I'm saying
Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson, yeah.
Trey McBride.
All right. Stay hot legend. Real talk.
I mean, I could see it. That Marvin Harrison has like a D-Hop type season. Like Marvin Harrison is going to come in and be really, really good. And you're right that like there was a point where Kyler was locked in on D-Hop and like just fed him all the time. But that was also in Cliff Kingsbury's offense.
That's true.
And I think Petzing is going to be a bit more run heavy. And I do think that they will be able to spread it around. Like, I think McBride will be a good play in fantasy. I think Michael Wilson has some potential. I think that Marvin Harrison, like when I saw him at where is he?
I'm looking at him at number 10, but I think I'm looking at half PPR.
Yeah, I see him at number 10 too. I was like, damn, that's really high for Harrison because he's so far ahead of all the other rookies that we've talked about.
He is so far ahead of the other rookies.
You know, 10 is okay, but it's like, man, can I get above 10? I guess the guys above him, Devontae Adams playing with Aiden O'Connell, Garrett Wilson,
that's what I'm saying.
Who's a bit of a, hasn't really had that kind of production yet.
Rodgers is 40 coming off an Achilles. Like, who's in a better situation? Maybe AJ Brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because it's AJ Brown and he's phenomenal. Puka Nacua is at 6 right now, but Cooper Kupp didn't replicate his massive season. Mm-hmm. It's not unreasonable to think that Nacua doesn't necessarily. Amon-Ra St. Brown, that would probably be the floor. I don't know if he gets, or that's probably the ceiling. I don't know if he quite gets up to that level of production, just because St. Brown is pretty solidly in that like reliable wide receiver 1 role for Detroit at this point. But everyone else, like I think Marvin Harrison Jr. could absolutely get up to that 5 or 6 range.
Yeah, I don't entirely disagree. I mean, I think he's really good, and I think he's in a really good situation. And everybody behind him, I think, is definitely like a tier below. So maybe
I was just looking at the
bottom of his tier. But I also don't think it's completely crazy. I mean, guys like Puka and St. Brown and a lot of these other dudes
they all could go crazy, and Marvin could not, and it would be fruitless to support this agenda. But I see a vision for a huge rookie year.
Yeah,
like I mean, we've seen it feels like every year now a receiver is going and setting the new all-time best rookie receiving record or best rookie receiving season. Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua. Why couldn't it be? Jefferson? Why couldn't it be Marv this year?
Yeah, I wouldn't hate anybody for taking Marv above Adams, Wilson.
Honestly, to me, Harrison is more a guy that I think is really good value where he is. But the second I start, like if I take him like as wide receiver 7 above Brown, above Wilson, above Devontae Adams, it's like, okay, well, what am I expecting to happen? I'm expecting him to get like 160 targets and be super efficient. And if he does anything less than that, it's bad. If he's a rookie at all, it's like not great. I think he's strong where he is because the guys behind him are like,
Olave,
like Pittman, Olave and DJ Moore and whatnot. It's like, and those guys I also think are good players, of course, but maybe don't have the crazy high target upside outside of maybe Olave, but we might get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I he's not my biggest sleeper, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, I think that he could have a huge rookie season. but I do think 10 seems to be a bit properly rated. But I think I can see what you're saying, Blaiden. Like, some of the guys above him have maybe more flaws in their situation than even he does. Like, he really is in a...
Like, if Kyler's healthy, what's going to go wrong? That's the only thing that could fail, is if Kyler gets hurt.
Yeah, which has happened a lot, but...
It has. And even if Kyler gets hurt, at that point, they might just force feed him.
They could run the ball more. They could just not target him 150 times.
Yeah, what could go wrong is, like, Trey McBride has a 900-yard season, and I don't know, like...
Yeah.
Like, it's not even really going wrong, though. Like, if they're moving the ball, like, it's not necessarily like, oh, there can only be one guy who eats, especially if Kyler is good. So I can see it.
We've seen teams like the Eagles where AJ Brown and Devontae Smith both have good years. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have both had good years.
Yeah, definitely. I think that you can move him up. Maybe a spot or two is as high as I can't get above AJ Brown. I definitely can't do that. But Adams and Wilson, I can see.
Adams and Wilson, I think he could.
I also could see
surpass.
Nakua. I wouldn't take Nakua before AJ Brown either, even though he's ranked above him on this.
I might agree. I
don't know. I think that's interesting.
I don't know.
Theo, do you have another sleeper? Or I've already done two of mine, so I don't want to get too far ahead.
You have. When it comes to your feet, eBay's got your back, because with eBay's authenticity guarantee, real experts are checking your sneakers, every stitch down to the sole. Me personally, I'm a big fan of a classic Air Force, or maybe a nice suede or leather boot, but whatever it is that you're adding to the lineup next, head to eBay. From the drop to your doorstep, eBay does not play with your sneaker game. Just look for that blue check mark. So ensure your next purchase is the real deal. Visit ebay.com for terms.
Let's see, who did I write down? I wrote down Khalil Shakir.
That is my third guy.
Should have seen that coming. Unsurprising.
It's my third guy. I guess my general, my general thing is that, like, there's a lot of good situations where there's a rookie and everyone's going to go after the rookie. And I think in a lot of those, it's very possible that the rookie does not win out and it's like anybody else, like the Allen stuff or the Lawrence stuff or whoever. I think Shakir is going way late and he's kind of poised to do well, or at least one of those Buffalo guys is gonna catch the ball.
Yeah, I think Shakir is a great play. Like, I think he's one of the best plays in this draft where he's getting taken right now, which is, where is it? It's way low.
I'm saying
it's way low. 54. 54. He was number one last year in success rate with Josh Allen. Like, there is no quarterback wide receiver connection who is more, I don't know. There's a lot of ways to measure efficiency, success rate, a first down on 3rd and 1. If you get 2 yards is, a successful play. A touchdown for 90 yards is just one successful play. So obviously this isn't accounting for massive plays, but to move the chains at that rate, to pick up positive yardage at that rate, I think Shakir has proven himself to be at least a good security blanket for Allen. And he's got big playability as well. I'll never forget that touchdown he had versus the Steelers where he made everybody miss. Like, he was someone I loved at Boise State as well. He was kind of like Puka Nacua before Puka Nacua for me, in terms of like, he's coming from like out west, kind of a smaller school, but still a important school in terms of the college football landscape. Like, really well-rounded, balanced receiver with a little bit of sturdiness to him as well. Like, he just hasn't had the instant success that Puka had, but I felt very similarly about him as a prospect, and now he's had this stat, right, where he's number one at it out of everybody. So yeah, he to me in that Bills situation with where he's being taken is like criminally low. I would take that and
I didn't even realize you said he's wide receiver 54 right now in ADP.
Yeah,
and
he's the wide receiver 1 on that team.
Maybe he's the wide receiver 1. There's still Kincaid, who could easily lead that team.
There's so much going on there. There's so many moving parts, and it's like, okay, it's Coleman and Samuel.
Where did Rashee Rice finish last year in fantasy? Does anyone have that?
30, 20 something.
I think he could have a better year than Rashee Rice did. Rashee Rice didn't even have 1,000 yards, did he? I'm just saying, if you're comparing like, well, a tight end could have a big year and take targets away, that's Kelsey, right? And then if you're the only other guy there is Keon, right? That would be the big thing that you'd be worried about. But to be wide receiver 54 is a wide receiver 1. Theo, I didn't even realize you are cooking with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's definitely going to be knocking on the door of 1,000 yards. I think at the very least, not at the very least. I shouldn't say at the very least, but last year, a
900-yard season is reasonable.
A 900-yard season is definitely my expectation. Like last year, week 8 on, the first time he got over 50% of the offensive snaps was week 8 last year. And from that point on, he was on his 17-game pace would put him at 911 yards. So if he can do what he did last year, and that was with Stefon Diggs around, like once he started cracking the starting lineup, like that would be a 900-yard season. Now Diggs is gone. He is probably going to get more than like the most amount of targets he got in the regular season last year was 6. So there's probably going to be bigger games than that. I definitely think 1,000 yards is the path for it is like so clear to me. So
yeah, I agree. I think targeting, especially in those good situations, those year 3 breakouts is a strong way to do it, especially when guys have shown talent and they've shown some efficiency when they are getting targeted. At wide receiver 54, I think the floor is just not low enough for me to be worried about making that pick. There's some other good guys around that area. Of course, that's in like Tyler Lockett range, who is always reliable. That's eventually not going to be true. Or Curtis Samuel's another guy in Buffalo who they signed for serious money, but also has been in a lot of different situations and has never like truly broken out. So I feel like maybe his upside is just more reliant on, well, they're just going to have to throw it to somebody, rather than with Shakir, where it's like, well, it's a good quarterback and they have to throw it to somebody, and we think Shakir is a good player. I definitely would be a little worried about Kincaid, but I also wonder if Kincaid himself is kind of a sleeper. How factored in his target share going up is priced into his ADP right now. Probably pretty high. I think people probably realize that. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Kincaid is tight end 5 right now, so
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think so too. He's gonna eat in that offense. But
wow, McBride is tight end 3.
Wow,
stay hot legend.
That's amazing. I mean, I thought that I could maybe peddle him as a sleeper, but apparently not.
Everyone is bought in,
bro. Nothing hurts worse than when you're like, this is my sleeper, and it's just some like very obvious thing you're thinking about that everybody knows. It's like, shit.
No.
I think no longer a niche.
I think Shakir could reach that point. If you're listening to this in May, like I really think that by the OTA hype is going to carry Shakir. There's just no way that he stays that low. It's going to be like Josh Allen is focusing on Khalil Shakir on the first day of OTAs, and people are going to be like, oh, right, Khalil Shakir. Because I just think people like forgot about that he exists. They're like, oh, yes, Keon Coleman. Isn't he a funny guy with his Macy's coat, right? Which he is. But like, there's other guys there that just aren't being talked about this offseason. And then they're going to start when people really start looking at it. But at any rate, Blaiden, who's another sleeper?
Can I actually give a bust real quick?
Sure. Let's inject some hater energy into this podcast.
I'm going to inject some hater energy, and it's not my place because I normally love this guy, and I actually just made a video saying that I do think he's a pretty high potential candidate to have a breakout year. But Drake London is wide receiver 12 right now, man.
That is also one of my busts.
That is insane hype. That is ridiculous hype.
Here's I guess my logic for it. Here's what I tried to work through. The idea is that like Kirk is just going to throw to him a ton, I guess, right? I guess I kind of get it, but I don't think that London is a top 12 receiver, and I don't think his situation is particularly steady because I still think they're gonna feed Bijan and Pitts is there.
Yes.
Maybe it just does end up with London getting force fed a ton. I guess I can kind of see it.
Maybe.
But I'd be worried that like the quarterback situation could be really bad. Like, what if the Achilles is a problem? What does this coaching staff want to do? What if they want to run it a ton with Bijan and a good offensive line, which wouldn't be crazy? I think there's just too many question marks for me to give London that boost into like the 12th spot when I think there's maybe a few guys I'd take before him. I will say that at 12, that's kind of getting into like the tier 3 of receivers. So I maybe agree with London as a tier 3 guy, just not that high in it.
Right.
But yeah.
I'm right there with you, Matt. Like, it's just really hard for me to. It's really hard for me to imagine that he has that good of a year. Like, I just straight up as far as caliber of player, like not even taken into consideration situation, I would take Nico over him. I'd probably take. It's close between him and Pittman. I'm definitely taking Ayuk. Definitely taking DJ Moore, and those guys might have slightly less favorable situations, but I think their quarterback play is probably going to be better. I don't know. Kirk Cousins is that. I think that, Matt, that's probably the big thing is Kirk Cousins is such a question mark. Same thing with Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. You know, you're banking on an older quarterback coming off an Achilles tear. I just don't know. And they weren't super mobile to begin with. And there's a lot of guys to get the ball to. It just doesn't feel super ideal.
Yeah, it is very high. I flagged the same thing. It's like I liked Drake London's game a lot. I think he's a great route runner, obviously insane in the contested catch game. Like I really do think he's poised to break out. But that number seems to be like if someone took him that high in the real draft, I'd be like, man, they're really high on him. And that's average. Does that mean there's a group of people who is going to take him even above that? Like
that's him getting taken in like the middle of the second round, probably.
That's him at pick 27. I'm seeing for standard, which has him at 15, so it would be even higher, more likely.
Yeah.
For PPR, for straight up PPR, he is the 14th overall pick. And then I'm assuming for half, he's sitting at 12, which is what I was looking at, which would make him 20th. I just like at 14, I just think that's crazy. And I guess I do see the vision, but I think his situation is such a dice roll.
Yeah.
That like we really don't know what any of that's going to look like. And I think at 14, you're really banking on like it being the very, very top tier.
Yeah, I'll say this though. There's a guy, if we want to transition to another bust pick, there's a guy very close to him that I think is even more set up to fail. And that is Stefon Diggs.
I skipped over Stefon Diggs when I was going over.
Yeah, because you know that it's not going to go like that for him. You just know it. I mean, he, with all of the disappointment last year, I was looking at Next Gen Stats. It said that he still had the 4th highest target share in football last year. Now, that's not air yard shares. So it was a little bit more underneath, but like he was still getting fed the ball a lot in Buffalo's offense. Like you can't discount the beginning of the year. And then by the end, he was still getting targeted. It just wasn't as effective as it used to be. Now he's going to Houston, and I think people just see like, oh, Diggs and Stroud. Like, awesome. Yeah. It's gonna be great. But it's like we just saw Diggs and Allen, and a lot of y'all left disappointed. I certainly did, as someone who had him at my dynasty team. Like, it was time to eject. I had to trade him. Like, well, he still had value, I thought, because he's going to a place in Houston with Nico Collins, who was 7th in fantasy points per game last year, and Tank Dell was 13th. In like per game, he was going off when he was in. He just got hurt, and Houston doesn't throw the ball a whole lot with Bobby Slowick. Like they were the 7th lowest pass rate last year, and I think that's going to change. Like they're going to have to be in more 11 personnel. They're going to have to throw the ball more. But still, this is a guy this isn't going to be the most aired out offense in the league, I think, despite all the talent. And he's behind, in my opinion, two other guys on the depth chart, I think, in terms of like repertoire with Stroud and where they're at in their respective careers. Like, there is a lot of risk that Diggs falls flat, and you're getting him again, like in maybe the early third round, probably, in terms of where you'd have to take him, because he's wide receiver 17 on the list I'm looking at. I did a sleeper mock draft before this. He went in the third round, yeah, ahead of Nico Collins, which I don't think is going to happen. Ahead of like Jalen Waddle and Deebo Samuel and DJ Moore. Like, I would rather have all of those guys. Devontae Smith.
Nico Collins might be a sleeper at this point.
Seriously.
Collins production on like, I think 110 targets or something ridiculously low was unbelievable last season. And I really agree with the Diggs stuff. I mean, I think he finished as wide receiver 12 and half point or stand. I could be a little bit off on that. He didn't finish particularly high, and it's like, dude, that is being force-fed the ball with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And you're going to a situation that is just undebatably worse no matter who you are. I agree. Collins and Dell are real players who will demand targets. And there's some risk that maybe the Texans like to keep it on the ground a decent amount. Maybe it's through the air more now that Stroud has established himself.
Right.
I don't want to say that they won't put some air out of the ball, but there's also not put some air out of the ball, put some air into the ball. But I think there's some also real risk. Like, let's just say it point blank, like Diggs sucked at the back half of last year. If you drafted Diggs as one of your top guys, and
he's
you
30,
like he was 31. He was bad down the stretch for you last year, and he may have lost you your league. And you're gambling on the regression not continuing, which isn't a crazy gamble, but it's like, I feel like not the ones that I love to take. And even if you're right, then you're gambling that he's going to see the ball a bunch more, or that he's still like, he's, again, he finished with 160 targets last year and wasn't that much better than his ADP right now. So I think personally, there's just too many question marks there between just how good is he going to be and how much are the Texans going to throw, and can they feed all of those guys, and whether or not he's going to see the targets. So I would also not be super high on him.
This has to be completely driven by casuals. Like, I seriously just cannot see the logic in drafting him that high. Besides, like, it's Stefon Diggs with CJ Stroud. It's just going to be awesome. And it's like, I don't see how that checks out. I would rather have Joe Mixon in this offense than Stefon Diggs on my fantasy team. Like, there's a lot of players I'd rather have. I might rather have some of the sleepers that I talked about as like wide receiver 40 or something than Stefon Diggs at wide receiver 17, like straight up, like not even where they're at. Like, I think I'd just rather have that.
I might rather have Rome.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I don't know. I'm really skeptical of Stefon Diggs' value right now.
It just the path to disaster there is so clear. Like, it's so in a way that where I don't know who else is going around there. Ayuk, what's his path? I guess with
holding out,
holding out, or like Michael Pittman. What's Michael? It's like, it's just, well, maybe like if Richardson comes in and like he really sucks, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Or DJ Moore, like
Richardson
if they just
got
don't
hurt
throw it
last
to him
year,
at all,
and Pittman still had a good year.
What's Devontae Smith's path to disaster? Like, he's
right. It's like, I feel like last year was it, and it's like it still was a very solid wide receiver 2 season. And then there's all the honestly, like, there is some concern. Maybe this is just like totally unfair. What if they don't target the ball, or they don't give him enough targets, and then he starts getting pissed, and then that turns into a whole thing? Like, I feel like
the path to success is,
I think
just
that's low on the list of
it's low on the list. I guess I don't know what I would expect to happen. Like, they just bench him. Like, I guess that could happen. But I just feel like the path to a very dramatic sort of blow up with that and the whole contract.
Yeah, and he's like a free agent after this year, so it's not like they have to, like, they didn't commit to him long term, right? So I guess I don't know how much that speaks to their mindset regarding their faith in him, because they did give up a 2nd round pick, so cutting his contract short, like, it kind of cancels out in terms of like faith in him, I guess. But at any rate, I just think that is a very glaring big name that is getting drafted too high.
I would agree. Could we get back to being nice and sweet and kind?
Me and Theo have already done all of our sleepers. I think it's just on you. So why don't you hit it?
Is it? Okay, I got another one.
Yes.
So we seem to be a little bit lower on Garrett Wilson in fantasy just because of how things could go wrong with Aaron Rodgers. We seem to be a bit lower on Drake London. The guy who will have a better year is George Pickens.
With Arthur Smith?
Hold on. He said, I'm out. He's being pitched as like wide receiver 37, man. Diontae Johnson's gone. The quarterback situation, not great, but is better than what it was with Kenny Pickett.
Is cooking now, you, I fear. I see him as wide receiver 29, though, on this list.
See, that's the thing is we're looking at like different lists. Oh, he's wide. I read that wrong. Yeah, he's wide receiver 29. I was reading 29 and 57 and somehow came away with 37. But even 29 feels a little low to me.
No. Do not.
You don't think so, bro? Who else is there?
No one. But Arthur Smith is there, man. They're running it. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren is there. They're running it 70% of the time.
There's
afraid.
no Diontae Johnson. Kenny Pickett's gone. It'll either be Fields or Russ. Again, not great, but better. It'll be better. I don't know, man. George Pickens feels like, okay, George Pickens or Malik Neighbors. I might take George Pickens.
I don't know. I wouldn't be very interested in taking either of those guys where they're being drafted.
Okay, George Pickens or Stefon Diggs? You have to choose one.
I actually don't think the Pickens one is that crazy.
No.
I have to pick one of my guys, all right, man.
It's honestly not that crazy.
He did have 1,100 yards last year.
The argument is this. The Arthur Smith stuff is being overpriced in. Everybody knows that Arthur Smith is there. Everybody knows that the quarterback situation isn't good. But guess what? The Steelers ran it a lot last year. He had 106 targets, and he was wide receiver 20. We're not asking for a huge target uptick necessarily, but could it be a lot of Wilson firing it to him down the sideline?
Yeah, could he be Cortland Sutton?
Where did Cortland Sutton finish?
Yeah.
I guess that's probably...
I'm looking at it now. The Steelers had about 30 less rushing attempts than the Falcons, which is not nothing. And I'm sure the Steelers are going to want to run it a lot. But Johnson not being there anymore, definitely as a guy who was hurt for part of the season, but took a lot of targets when he was in there, definitely means something. Like I think throwing it up to Pickens and letting him do his thing, I think it could still be a part of their game. At 29, I really don't hate it. It's definitely a weird offense to invest in, but if you have the guts to do it, like I can't really argue with your logic.
I have the guts.
And I guess there's always a world where it's not the exact same situation. Arthur Smith isn't making every single call, and it could end up with Pickens, seeing a solid uptick in his targets and producing well. And even if he doesn't, if he can just do what he did last year, it's still a really good pick. I don't hate it.
Thanks, Matt.
I guess I don't hate it, but
I'm scared of it too. But it's like I see the path. Like I get
more
the logic.
For me.
Yeah. It is more for you. You can eat all the George Pickens shares, and I'll take my ass to the all Jaguars team and take Christian Kirk the pick.
My draft will go. I'll go Marvin Harrison Jr. at 12 because I always get the last pick for some reason. I'm gonna get Marvin Harrison Jr. and then I'm gonna turn back around and get Nico Collins, and then I'll turn back around and get George Pickens.
All right, take careful notes, everyone. This is not how you should build your team.
And once again, my 0 RB strategy will reign supreme.
It is never work. At least you're not taking three quarterbacks.
It will work.
That's usually where you get.
And my 0 RB strategy will work because when I get Nick Chubb, he's being pushed way down in the boards. Trust. You see the vision.
I was watching Nick Chubb highlights last night and was feeling bad that I didn't put him in my top 10, but
yeah, you should feel bad.
But that was also me watching like highlights from Georgia. Like.
Oh no. You were watching.
I was watching a bunch of guys' highlights last night. I was just on a running back highlight.
Running backs have great highlights, man.
Oh yeah, I was watching
they do.
Some Saquon highlights. I was watching some Nick Chubb highlights. All my guys. I was watching some A-Chain highlights to determine if I should have had him in my top 10.
His highlights are nice, man. Everybody thinks it's just like, well, he's just fast, but like, dude, you know.
He's nice. His highlights are nice, but I didn't see a single highlight on a run between the tackles.
We don't care. I'm just saying, you know.
They were all tosses.
I'm clicking around the RB ADP, like, because I'm just on that.
Yeah.
A-Chain is running back 9. I'm not loving it. I'm a little nervous about the A-Chain running back 9.
You might have to fade.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Do you have one more sleeper, Blaiden, or are we on to the bus entirely?
I think I've only said 2. I only had Khalil Shakir and Brian Thomas Jr.
My fault.
So Theo, you give us another.
Can I say Dontavion Wicks, or is that too lame?
I don't think that's lame at all. I actually I was thinking about that Packers receiver.
I saw someone say that rule number 1 of Wicks Club is that you don't talk about Wicks Club.
How about this then? Instead of talking up Wicks, I'll say I'll do my bust real quick, and I'll say of that Packers receiving core, I'm looking at Romeo Doubs with a raised eyebrow. I'll say that because Jaden Reed finished number 1 in yards and touchdowns for them last year, which I knew, but it still surprised me when I looked back on it. Like, it just didn't feel like he was that important compared to Doubs. And then it didn't feel like he had quite the efficient season that Wicks had. Like, those were the 2 like real standouts to me. And it's like, man, Jaden Reed was number 1, and then Wicks could break out, and Watson apparently had misaligned hamstrings, and now they're like more symmetrical. So maybe he can get through the season healthy. Like, Doubs has been productive for Green Bay, but if you're thinking that he's their wide receiver 1, that could very, very easily change, I would say. So instead, I was like trying to sort out the Packers receiving core, and I couldn't really land on how I thought they would rank. Like, will Wicks break out and finish above Reed? Like, I have no idea, even as a fan. Like, how much is like Musgrave going to play into this? Because I think that he has a really bright future. So my only takeaway really with the Packers receiving room, and this isn't really a sleeper or a fade, I guess it's fade Doubs, is like don't take Doubs, and maybe just take Jordan Love. If he has all of these weapons, you can kind of get them all if you just take their quarterback. So I was trying to figure out what to make of the Packers receiver room. I think Wicks is a sleeper with how low he's getting taken. Like, his releases are beautiful off the line. He's got yak ability. He's got body control, and he's tall, so he can really pluck the ball out of the air. Like, he's got everything that you look for in a wide receiver. So even though it's a crowded room, he's a good pick. And then I would say avoid Doubs, because there's, I think, guys with more potential who could pass him as kind of the de facto number 1.
Doubs was not super efficient with his targets last year, and he had 8 touchdowns, which is kind of a lot for how many targets he saw. So it kind of feels like maybe that could downswing. The Packers are, a super good offense, I think, and investing in Jordan Love weapons is not a bad plan. The problem is, like, Doubs, it seems like you have to take with like a pretty solid pick. I didn't look at his ADP. Same with Watson, same with Reed. Maybe the play here is like
crazy high on these things.
And like, someone's going to eat in that offense. It's the truth. But maybe if you're too scared to touch the Packers because they just have too many guys, which is totally fair, maybe the play is Wicks, because he's wide receiver 70 right now, and he finished as wide receiver 70 last year. If you have a deep league, maybe that's like kind of the no risk throwing your hat in the ring, because he saw some targets and he was efficient with it. Like, the idea that he ends up being one of the winners of that room feels just as possible as some of these other guys. but the investment is really, really light. So I think that's something I'd be looking to do. But I also don't know if I'd be out on a ton of the Packers guys, just depending on where the value comes in. Because Reed, I'm seeing him as wide receiver 33. I kind of think that's fair. I don't think that's crazy. It also depends on what you think of Watson.
Mm-hmm.
And what you think of the tight ends, and it's a lot going on.
Yeah, I agree that Wicks is the play, because when it's anybody's game, you might as well I feel like Wicks and Reed have similar chances of finishing as the top guy there, but one is 33 and one is 70, and maybe that's silly because Reed was what was he, a second round pick or he was definitely a day 2 pick. I can't remember if he was back of the second round or early in the third round. And Wicks was a 6th round pick, and Reed tested better and he was more productive last year. So based on historical factors, I would definitely say Reed looks like the safer play there. But just from watching the Packers, I think Wicks is a better receiver than Reed is. So,
no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And I think some of the signs actually point to Wicks being kind of good. He was a 5th round pick and he had 60 targets last year. That's not guaranteed at all whatsoever. The fact that he was able to earn that is incredibly impressive. And among rookies, he was 1st in yards per route run. I'm reading right here.
Yeah,
I think those signs, it's man, I can get that guy in a good offense for, basically just sort of a shot in the dark. I could drop him and pick somebody else up if I'm totally wrong, and no harm, no foul in a lot of leagues. Yeah, I like that play a lot.
So I guess he's my sleeper. I really am fascinated to see how all the snap counts play out. It's going to be so even, because Bo Melton was really good down the stretch.
Exactly,
as well.
That's a guy we haven't. I think he's wide receiver 100, I think, or something ridiculous. So if you play in a really deep league, that might not be the craziest thing.
Yeah, I was looking at the Bo Melton ranks really high in yards per route run and stuff as well.
There were only 2 100-yard receivers last year for the Packers, and one of them was Bo Melton. I think the other was Reed.
Shout out Bo Melton.
Hi. I've been thinking about some of the Browns receivers too.
I'm sure that you have. And hopefully we're about to talk about the bust section here.
Hey, now, man. I don't have any of the Browns receivers in my bust section.
No, but
I thought about. Yeah, I mean, they're all in the sleepers. All of them. Actually, if there was one guy to put in the bust section, so Amari Cooper's going to be good again. I don't know if I would say he's a sleeper or a bust.
Yeah,
he's just kind of hard to project. Elijah Moore could be terrible. He was terrible last year. He had 104 targets.
I'm done with Elijah Moore. He's had his chances, and
he was
as a wide receiver too. Obviously, he's never had a great quarterback, but still.
I don't care. Amari Cooper had 1,200 yards last year with terrible quarterback situation. Yeah. Elijah Moore had 104 targets, only caught 59 of them. Honestly, if there were a sleeper wide receiver, another guy to just take a flyer on, and if it doesn't work out, whatever, might be Cedric Tillman. If there was a Browns receiver to take that.
I just disagree so much with this one, Blaiden. I hate to say it. The Pickens one I like.
This would be a free. This is a free agency pickup, man.
But he's not going to be wide receiver 2, and the passing offense is bad.
Well, Elijah Moore is going to be bad, right? That's a fact. So he can take Elijah Moore's spot. The question is, can he take Jerry Jeudy's spot?
No.
No, you don't think so?
Really, if you want one of these guys, you want a Marion Brown, trust me.
If you're not drafting Amari Cooper and you've got a Browns receiver on your team,
you might be Blaiden Kirk.
Yeah. Amari Cooper might be the only guy worth taking, but
and Cooper's not a bad play.
What did Cedric Tillman do last year? If Elijah Moore was so garbage last year, I
think he had 250 yards.
Why didn't Tillman take his spot as a rookie, like Dontavion Wicks? Because Cedric Tillman's not that good either.
I think it's just the politics, The
politics. His success rate was 40%.
It's in locker room politics.
This year, the politics are right, man. Elijah Moore is still there. The same coaching staff is still there. The politics are in his favor. He's going to win the debate. The wide receiver debates on why they should get targets.
That's how I feel about Trey Tucker only getting 35 targets last year.
The politics. You know how politics.
That's how I feel about Tucker not starting over Adams.
I feel like I'm gonna run that into the ground. The politics.
Yeah, the politics.
That's a good
thing. Actually, real wide receiver sleeper, Donovan Peoples-Jones.
There we go. He's gonna get traded back to the Browns.
And then he will be wide receiver 2 there again.
Yeah.
This is a lock. But Matt, who else do you have as a bust?
This makes me sick to say it. Maybe this is not the greatest take in the world now that I think about it, to be completely honest with you. But somebody I wrote down that I guess I'm not that high on is Olave. Like, I just think that offense sucks. I think that offense, like, I understand that he is like the guy there by so much.
Mind you, Matt is a Panthers
super
fan.
Valuable. And I guess what that makes me feel like it's like, okay, he is going to see a certain number of targets, assuming he plays. So there's only so bad he can be. But he's being drafted as like wide receiver 11, or I think in PPR he might be going even a little bit higher. I could be wrong.
He's in that Drake London. He's getting drafted up there with Drake London, and
he's getting drafted up there with Drake London. I think he's super talented. But I wonder if the situation is just going to hold him back again. Like, he was wide receiver 20 last year. I drafted him kind of around that 11 value. And I expected, like, what if he's one of the top guys? I just feel like the upside is not quite as high as with some of the other picks. And maybe my takeaway is that after Harrison, I'm kind of not loving a lot of these receivers. Like, I don't think they're great.
Rounds
value.
2 and 3 is kind of bleak for the receivers. Like, again, I'm going back to this mock draft that I did before, and it's like London in the 2nd round, Olave in the 2nd round, Diggs in the 3rd round, Neighbors in the 3rd round. And Neighbors is in a situation where, like, he's the number 1, but he's on a terrible.
It's the same thing. It's like that team sucks though, and like that can kill you. And it did with Olave last year. It did, where it's like, okay, well, certainly there's a world where you can be on a bad offense and just see so many targets it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that a lot of teams just don't quite do that. Like, they'll only get him up to like 125 or like, what do you think Olave had target wise last year? I don't think it was like 160, was it? And if it was, why did he finish as wide receiver 19 in PPR or whatever?
Yeah, I agree. How many of the top players last year were on bad offenses? DJ Moore comes to mind, but then it's like, you don't want guys from mid-ass teams. Like, you want guys that are scoring touchdowns and getting a bunch of yards.
38, which is pretty high. It's like, it's like, dude, I just don't know how much more like target share growth we can expect to see. It's like, I just think their offense is bad, maybe. And again, it's like, if we were drafting him around like 20, if we were drafting him around like wide receiver, like even like 18 or 17, all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're just thinking maybe the touchdowns are a little bit better this year. And we're thinking that like maybe.
Where did he finish last year, Matt?
Wide receiver 19.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like we're already projecting a lot of improvement in there. And I understand when you're picking this high, like if you're picking wide receiver 11 or 12, it's going to be tough to beat that number. Like, there's very few ways to get up there than it is like if we're talking about wide receiver 30, because then they can be wide receiver 20, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I definitely worry about just the offense being bad. I just remember I picked him around that spot last year, and it was so frustrating to me. And I love him as, I'm wearing the Ohio State hat. I love him as a player. He's dope. But the Saints are once again crushing an Ohio State receiver.
Yeah, he only missed one game last year as well and finished in that wide receiver 19 spot. I'm looking at the average scoring per game, and he was wide receiver 24.
Dude, he's like, it's like he's fighting to be a wide receiver too, because Derek Carr is not that good. Yeah. And like that Saints offense. And here's the thing, the Saints offense looks absolutely no better this year, really.
Don't talk about my beautiful baby boy Derek Carr like that.
I forgot that you had a Derek Carr agenda. Yeah, I agree. In the second round, it's just too rich. And I would rather have Josh Jacobs or Derrick Henry or maybe a running back like that in the second round. I think I'd rather have Mahomes or Josh Allen. I might rather have Travis Kelce than.
I mean, I'm looking at wide receiver 22, Devonta Smith, and it's like, am I supposed to think he's like? I guess he doesn't have the path to the target share, but
does it matter?
Targets is that they need to be good,
right?
It's I could go out there and throw the ball to Chris Olave, but if I was a Saints quarterback, you wouldn't want to draft him.
Yeah. I mean, let's see, where was Devontae Smith last year? 9.2 fantasy points a game. Chris Olave 9.
I guess that's
according to Fantasy Pros. So like, what is different this year that now Olave is going way higher than Devontae Smith? Again, it's like, I want the top dog in an offense. I'd rather have the number 2 in a great offense than a number 1 in a shitty one. I think. I mean.
And the thing about Devontae is that he only saw 112 targets last year, and we've seen on the same offense him see more targets than that. I actually think like we're drafting him way closer to what he finished to last year, and he could see more targets just based off, like you're not going to hit the low end every year. He's hit a higher number on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
The year before he had 136.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a 20 target. Yeah, it's like I feel like the 20 target or 25 target improvement is just as likely for Smith as it is for Olave. But I've got to pay this ridiculous premium for me to go with Olave just because he's the clear number 1. I don't really love that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. I don't think it's a bad take at all. That's too. I wouldn't want to leave the second round with Olave. Like, give me somebody else, even if it's. I know everybody likes to draft wide receivers and running backs in that range. Like, if that's the wide receiver that I'm getting, like, give me a quarterback, give me Kelce or something who's probably still going to be productive somehow. He always seems to be tight end 1. But at any rate, another guy that I'm not super high on is Cooper Kupp.
That was my guy.
Yeah. He just has not in statistics. When I took my statistics course recently at Denver Community College, shout out the City Hawks, I learned that you can just throw out outliers. Like if something is above 1.5 times the inner quartile range, that's an outlier, and it falls, and you throw it out. And sadly, that is what Cooper Kupp's 2021 season is seeming like to me. Outside of that year, it was 737 yards last year, 812 yards the year before, 974 the year before that. Then there was an 1,100-yard year, so that was good. But like outside of that huge year, he's only hit 1,000 yards once. And obviously outside of that huge year is risky to say because he was maybe the best wide receiver ever in 2021, and especially in fantasy. But I just don't think that's going to happen again. He's been so banged up over the course of his career, especially these last 2 years. He's really fallen off against man coverage recently in terms of his metrics compared to where he was back in 2021. And he's entering his age 31 season. I just think like you're still kind of holding out hope if you're taking him that he's got the upside to be a fantasy cheat code. Like I know it's getting a little bit into the distant past, but and he's maybe not as severe as some like Diggs, who I just think there's no way that he lives up to where he's been being taken. Like Kupp is a little bit below all of that, but still he's still a wide receiver 20, and I think I'd rather have a younger guy like Smith keeps coming up as an example. I think that he's a good pick, obviously, if we're talking about him this much as a option instead of some of these top guys. But again, his name comes to mind. Jalen Waddle, his name comes to mind. I even think like DK Metcalf. I think I'd rather have him than Cooper Kupp. And those are some of the names getting drafted right after him. So he was someone that I was like, I just am not. I feel like another banged up, like 800-yard season is probably more likely when you look at his entire career than like he goes nuclear and Stafford and him have this insane connection. Like I just don't know if that's happening again.
Yeah. I mean, Stafford just has a new best friend. That's what it is, you know?
Yeah, he had 191 targets in 2021.
Damn.
That's a
like,
lot.
Is he gonna crack 100 targets again in his career? I don't know. I don't know. He's been near that the last 2 years. I guess if he stays healthy, he would. Maybe I'm wrong on this because
Tutu. I don't think you are, because Kyron Williams is really good, so they can lean on him. I thought Tutu Atwell showed some moments of being pretty good last year as well.
Tutu basically got completely phased out. Would be my thing. I feel like maybe I'm totally making that up, but I think Tutu was only playing when it was like the injuries, and then everybody got healthy, and Tutu really stopped being a factor. I'd have to go check his game log.
But I thought when Tutu was in, he was like pretty effective.
Tutu was not that bad, honestly. I was kind of that was a nice surprise. But
Tutu had a great game against Seattle. I remember. I always reference that game. That was a really fun game to watch. But that was
it depends. I guess my question would be, where did Cooper Kupp in like half PPR? Where was he finished in points per game? That's the question here.
Last year,
in half PPR points per game, he was 27th, and you're gambling against him getting injury. I think that's interesting. I think that's something about that tells me, okay, I could buy into it if it was like, well, he might get hurt, but he was like 12th in points per game for wide receivers. But 27th is below his ADP, and he's a huge injury risk. To me, that doesn't seem like the greatest play in the world, just simply off that. But he's going to see a lot of targets.
Yeah.
He's going to see a lot of targets, and if he turns those into touchdowns, it could work out a whole lot better.
Yeah, he did have 95 targets in 12 games, and if he was healthy, maybe this isn't the greatest fade, but
that's also true. If he was banged up, like how much did that hold him back?
But it's like he's been banged up through his entire career except for 2019 or 2021.
Right, and he's only getting older. Yeah, I would be a little nervous about it. Like, I get the play, but I'd be a little nervous about it.
I don't have the balls to make that pick, I fear.
Fair enough.
I'm realizing something. Yeah, there's one more guy I want to shout out. Jakobi Meyers is wide receiver 50. He's just going to outperform that. Like,
historically, he has.
He is the unsexiest play. Like, maybe he'll be on your bench and he doesn't have like the upside to start him, but like at the end of the day, he's going to be more than wide receiver 50. He was wide receiver 25 last year in average per game.
I don't think. Yeah.
Would you like to hear the Jakobi Meyers? He 800 yards or 807, 804, 866, 729 last 4 seasons. Started with the soonest one.
Yeah, man, he's gonna have 800 yards and 6 touchdowns next year.
And he's had 71, 67, 83, and 59 receptions. I mean, I know that offense. That offense is also going to stink, but there's a level. That's the thing. It's like I don't think you can pick any one philosophy where it's like, I don't care at all about target share on a bad offense. It's like I was saying with Olave. It's like you should. Like Devontae Adams is another example. Guy I'm also maybe a little bit worried about. Like, he saw the highest target share, and he only came down with 100 receptions. Through like 180 targets, only 100 receptions. And it's like only 8 touchdowns. Like, that offense could look like anything, and I'd be nervous. And he's one guy that I'm maybe eyeballing a little bit, but there's levels to it, I think. And with Meyers, it's like he's probably just going to see the ball more than his wide receiver whatever status has him at. So I can agree with that one.
Yeah, that's not a very sexy one because it's like he's not a great starting play for you, but like he is going to put up numbers. He should be way more than 50. That's why he is 50.
Your bye week play with Jakobi Meyers will feed mountains.
I'm becoming more and more turned against I think sometimes rookies get a little bit of a boost. I don't disagree with all of them, but sometimes, and I really hate the idea of like older guys bouncing back now. Yeah. The more like after losing on Michael Thomas a million times because he's the GOAT. you know, the Cooper Kupp and
we're
the
beaten and
Stefon
battered.
Diggs.
This is
just keep digging.
Michael Thomas had that
around.
one good year. Michael Thomas had that one great year and then never did anything again. And then,
look, we're focused on running back 53 J.K. Dobbins, and I'm not playing. It's very serious to this group. Dobbins, the Dobbins one makes me so mad. The Dobbins one makes me so mad because that wasn't even our fault. Like, he just happened to get hurt. Whereas, like, Michael Thomas, it's like, okay, fellas, you should know at this point what's going to happen with that. But Dobbins, he had no, like, his major history of it. It just happened, and he was going to go off. Yeah. And he was going to be special.
He was averaging, like, 6 yards to carry, man. Like,
he was going to go off. I'll never forget, though. Don't say he never did anything again. You'll never take week 1 of 2022 away from me when he, like, mossed A.J. Terrell twice and had 2 touchdowns. You'll never take it.
Why are we talking about it like? Why are we talking about him like it's his funeral, man? Why are we giving eulogies?
He had 8 carries last year, man. He played 1 game.
Why are we giving a eulogy for J.K. Dobbins?
Because the thing that sucks is, like, he came back in 22 and he was, like, still super efficient when he. Oh, Michael Thomas. Yes, Michael Thomas was like.
He had that week 1 2022 after he missed all of 2021. So don't say he never did anything again, because he had 1 good game against the Falcons. I remember watching.
And then
and then it went downhill from there.
It's just like the Queens of the Stone Age song. It's all downhill from here. I don't.
Is that about it? I'm giving one last look through.
I have a bunch of running back takes that I want to give, but we got to save those. We got to save it for the episode. I think.
I fear you're correct.
Yeah, the only other name that is kind of speaking to me is Mike Williams on the Jets. Like, could be a touchdown merchant, and he's wide receiver.
I would actually say the opposite, to be completely real with you.
Yeah, that's kind of
there's a lot of guys in that
thing, but
it's starting to sound like we love everybody in like the 40 to 60 range a little bit. And I think with Williams, it's like he's just coming off an injury. I don't know anything about that offense. Right. Like I have some. He's a
also,
big name.
He's not Aaron Rodgers' best friend, so
he's not. Right. And here's the thing: I've heard that they're like cool. But not like buddy. The politics of it are bad.
Lazard.
The Jets actually do have politics.
Lazard at wide receiver 114 or whatever.
That could be a good political play.
Talent-wise, I don't love it, but politically, there's something there.
Yeah.
In the upcoming election,
he's the Kamala Harris.
Yeah, many are saying.
What do we think? The Jets just signed Tariq Cohen 4 minutes ago. What do we think of his fantasy?
Former Panther.
He'll have. I'm sure he'll have like a. I don't know.
How old is Cohen, man?
It's like.
When did he have like? He had like 1 really good season before he ended up getting banged up.
Well, he got banged up in like the most horrific ways, is what I'll always remember about him. Like when he tore his Achilles on like a live stream, like he was working out.
Oh, that's right. That sucks so bad.
That does suck so bad. He was all pro in 2018 though as a returner.
Yeah.
Well, he was 2018 as returner, but he had like 1,200 yards from scrimmage that year, something crazy.
Yeah, he had 725 receiving yards. What?
He was nice.
He was kind of gassed, man. I remember I made a hype video for the Bears, and I used so many Tariq Cohen clips, and I'm like, this guy is juiced. Because he would just make some nasty moves on like a punt return.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you should take him, Blaiden. He's one of your guys.
Hold on.
In the 32-man league, he will have a spot.
I was going to say in the 32-man.
Wait a minute.
All I'm saying, we are 6 years removed from that season.
We are 6 years removed. That is stink for him.
But I'm glad he's still making money.
That's true. We'll reach out, bring him on the show, tell him that we love him so much and are glad he's still making money. But I think that's all we've got for this episode, this wide receiver fantasy episode. I hope you all enjoyed the live stream that we did yesterday. If you didn't check it out, we played some Madden. We were going crazy. We
legitimately were.
we were kind of good.
We dropped like 60 and won 5 straight superstar KO games. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So if you guys want us to keep doing stuff like that, make sure you let us know. We might play some other games as well in future live streams. But until next time, thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. And until next time, we'll catch you on the Flippity Flop.